Good morning. Entering the first session of the day always is a bit hard. So I'm going to try to summarize a 3.5-hour, 4-hour presentation down to 30 minutes. So I need your help, so we're going to move pretty fast on this. And the reason why I'm talking about smart cities, you heard my introduction as the co-founder of the Apeejay Stya University. That's my non-profit hat. In the corporate for-profit hat, I work with my family business, which is the Apeejay Stya and Saran Group, and we do everything from chemicals, plastics, pharmaceuticals, and now a bit into construction and real estate. So what's happened is that we are building 25 million square feet in the next 10 years. And I've been going for the last couple of years in India, Europe, Silicon Valley, really trying to get my head around smart cities. We've also seen our Prime Minister has sparked the entire country's imagination. 100 smart cities and very specific proposals have come from various stakeholders on how to do those. So I just want to a little bit walk you through some of my findings and to sort through some of the issues that I discovered on my personal journey. And you're going to try to see if this clicker works. Okay. So what is a smart city? It really depends who you talk to. And for me, this is extremely interesting because everybody has their hat in the ring. Governments want to capture the imagination of voters. Private developers are looking for a concept and a selling proposition. Tech vendors and system integrators are looking to convert or rebrand existing products and services to smart city enablers. No, I don't sell a water treatment utility system. I sell a smart city product now. Urban planners, architects, many of you who are in the audience, themselves see themselves as a central component in planning and design. Large consultancies, management otherwise, see they're playing a crucial advisory role. So everybody from IBM to McKinsey et al. The construction and construction management companies look at it as one of the more core high-value execution jobs. Don't tell us to do just a basic city. We'll go the extra mile and we'll make it into a smart city. General design and design thinkers see it as the natural domain. Right? What is a better, bigger problem to solve as a design thinker than all the components of a smart city? And quite frankly, anyone else who thinks a bit of impact and money can be made. Right? I hear hundreds of people saying, oh, my product, service, company does everything that has to do with smart cities. But with so many different groups vying to get a foot in the door, there has been a huge competition to decide who defines the vision, the look, and a feature of a smart city. If you sell a communications system, for example, you will define it as a society which is interconnected and communicating. If you sell a utility design system, you'll talk about back-end integrations and electricity distribution. If you're an urban architect and designer, you will talk about spaces. Now, this is great for innovation. It has also led to a bit of chaos. And if you had a chance to read some of those proposals in those 100 smart cities, luckily, none of them look exactly the same, but it also means there is no core definition. So when I started looking at this, I started asking the question, well, let's see what's the difference between a smart city, the buzzword, and a well-designed city. And this is where we could finally tease out a definition. You have smart city, and you have well-designed city, and often people can't distinguish the two. This is my definition. Oh, and by the way, don't worry, all this stuff will be online. I will send you the link, all the presentation materials, etc. Please drop your card off with me. I will email it to you. So for me, a smart city is the judicious, emphasis on the judicious, use of technology to be able to eliminate leakages and waste, optimally utilize and distribute resources, enhance the consumer experience and ease of use, enables platforms for a new product and service, and change behavior for better personal and societal outcomes. These, in my opinion, are the 5 features when technology is applied, define the smart in smart city. And I've listed this in order of low-hanging fruits, and I'll give examples for each to tease it out. So what's the hype? The hype is time for smart cities has arrived. Confluence of technology makes things possible today. Ample funding is now available. 5,000 crores, 100 smart city program, and other countries are increasing their expenditures. Business models for smart cities, people tell us, are now proven. They are able to break even on the infrastructure. My product and service, with a few tweaks, is able to take a lead as a smart city feature. I don't have to change much, thoda sa sensor, a little bit of UI, and I can be a smart city platform enabler. And smart cities are much in demand for end users, and they will not only pay for better services, it will create new consumer demand for more and better services as within the smart city framework. If you all work together, innovate, we'll be able to execute and bring smart cities into reality. What I call the kumbaya thing. If it just takes all of us and love and all to get together, and smart cities will happen. The reality which I quickly saw. The first is most of the technology that is being proposed is useless, gimmicky, and superfluous. It doesn't really add much value. It looks great, it makes for great presentations, great prototypes, but when you actually get into the details, the cost of the technology doesn't really justify the value add it does. There are very few standards for the technology that does exist. Right? Since a lot of it is being new, different companies are vying saying, okay, take my proprietary system rather than having a standards body set. For example, the difference would be in telecom, where there are standard bodies which pretty much lay down interoperability issues. Seed funding is available. 5,000 crores means 50 crores, which is enough to do a seed funding. But business models for large-scale, sustainable, smart cities are still a work in progress. There are very few examples of people who've managed to do it, and I'll cover very quickly some of this. And I'm firmly of the belief very few smart cities will be created in the short term, next 3, 5 years. Most will be prototypes, which is really good because it's important that we experiment. And there'll be experiments in the pockets of large cities. So Mumbai will have one neighborhood which will try to become smart, which is what they've done with the smart city proposal, or smaller towns. But a large number of cross-discipline people are required to look at smart cities. I don't think any single person, regardless of our ego, will be able to say that my industry or my firm is going to be taking the lead in this, and I'm going to get the maximum share of the pie. I think it requires a sincere involvement of everybody, which is also good because that there are a lot of empty seats on the table, and people have to come up and take up those responsibilities. And it's important to focus on a number of stakeholders. We get obsessed with either the government or we get obsessed with the people who are actually going to live in these cities. But it's the inhabitants, to the financiers, to the government, to the companies, to the businesses, all of that form the ecosystem that creates a smart city. I'm going to run through this slide in the interest of time. One of the biggest questions which I deal with is, hey, should we do a greenfield smart city or a brownfield smart city? And especially urban designers who I love greenfield projects because it really allows you to do something. But there are pros and cons. What I love about greenfield is that you can effectively design architectural spaces around the concept itself, which is very important. It's something that we are trying to do. We are trying to do a 110-acre smart city right next to main Mumbai. This not in my backyard and fragmented ownership that you can't collect enough land parcels to build infrastructure is eliminated. It's very cheap to lay down technology and infrastructure. Everything is being built anyway. Put in the wires, the pipes, anything else that you need to do. And you can get people as they move in to imbibe in the smart city culture from day one, so you can maximize utilization. You're not convincing people to start using the service. They move into the city, they start from day one. A lot of cons. This speculative, both in terms of actual use and target audience. If you're building a new city, you don't actually know who's going to live there until they actually do. You can keep predicting, you can try to aim, but you don't know what. You don't even know whether they'll utilize the services. Is this an actual problem that you've solved? There's a high risk in predicting the behavior of people and the adoption of certain technologies. You'll be surprised to see a huge number of technologies that people thought that, oh, this is thing. I remember, for example, the Segway. You had senior people around the world saying, we will design cities around the Segway. That didn't happen, right? There are plenty of technologies which are going to be called as the white elephants in the room. It's hard to take economies of scale from start due to phasing. Nobody builds a smart city in a day. You can't build 15, 20 million. If you see China, and I go there often, you'll see these ghost cities. Millions and millions of square feet of completely built cities lying empty because there are not enough people to fill them. And so the economies of scale to actually get things rolling don't happen. The brownfield, the pros, you have established economies of scale. If you go to a suburb of Mumbai or you go to main Mumbai and say, I'm going to take this, becoming it into smart, you know exactly how many people live there. You know how they work, you can plan, you know their income levels, and you can see how the financial models work. You know how they behave. You know how they go to school, how they go to office, where the roads are, how people move. So you are able to study their behaviors before you start any smart city projects. There's a lot of willingness for governments, international organizations to invest and fund. More in brownfield because they see it as an urban renewal than say, okay, I'm going to build a new city from scratch. That sort of international support and demand, particularly for cheap funding, isn't available. The cons, again, large, not in my backyard. You want to put this great, smart sewage treatment plant, you're not putting it next to my house. Fragmented ownership. There are 100 different owners of the same plot of land. You can't get collected enough to do anything reasonable around it. Huge number of stakeholders. Because if you have an existing city, you have the Merchant Trading Association, you have your NGOs, you have the environmentalists, everything competing to say, look, you can't do this, historical societies. And it's hard to dig up and disrupt and migrate legacy infrastructure and systems. I live in Delhi, and the Delhi metro completely destroys the traffic in everywhere it goes. People are willing to do it because it raises property values and all, but it's not easy. So what I want to quickly cover is while we're looking at 5, 10, 15 years, and this is a space where I'm sure all of us are eagerly watching, I want to see what we can do now, right? If you're building a smart city in the next 3 to 5 to 10 years, what are the low-hanging fruits, which there's fundamental technologies and the ability to execute that exists today? And I want to go into my 5-structure framework. Slow-hanging fruit. First, the elimination of leakages and waste, right? The automation and sensorization. By the way, don't worry, I made that word up. Sensorization isn't an actual word, but I think it was cool enough to put in there, of the entire infrastructure, right? So that means the full monitoring and understanding the flow and elimination of free riders, that is people who are stealing water and electricity, and predicting and responding quickly to issues. Some of the things we can do now, for example, we can highly optimize how electricity, water, and waste, include sewage, runs through a city, how it's managed, how it's monitored. We can improve the transportation systems, route planning, where do the buses go, how do the transition management system work, what is the energy consumption of these vehicles because of certain routes that they travel. And maintenance costs, because if you have a fully censored city, you know in advance if something is going to break. You can send a maintenance team to do preventive maintenance rather than suddenly something breaks and the entire city is disruptive. One of my favorite, for example, is road cameras with image processings, where they are able to look at roads and tell you how much of a gradient is being removed. So the municipality can tell when is a pothole going to be formed or not. You don't need to put sensors under the road. These days, cameras with imaging processing can pretty much do the same thing. Second is optimally utilize and distribute resources. So if you've eliminated the waste, you have that thing. The second is, okay, how do you use what you have? It's effective systems to communicate use and spread consumption towards full time rather than peak spikes. When people consume city resources, they normally do it at the same time, or because of lifestyle convenience. So you see a lot of peak utilizations, and you don't see infrastructure being used 24/7. Part of it is getting algorithmic and live responses to optimize distribution, which means that using algorithms, I'll give you a simple example. Why did Uber get so much success in the US to start with? Because they were able to predict using algorithms where would people want to hail taxis from. And they were to tell their drivers in the US that here is, for example, a movie is about to finish, a major sporting event is about to happen. Please go and park your taxi there. There will be people who will want to be ordering Ubers. So this is sort of the algorithmic and live response system. I'll give you a very small example. Public parks and sports facilities, right? Swimming pool usage is peak. But if you have a simple system of telling people where is the booking and how to do it, we've seen that over time, people realize, look, this is going to be, look, I know 40 people are coming, and let me book a slot where there's only 5 people who are committed. Same thing as traffic management and mass transit management, and particularly parking. Knowing before you reach the parking garage how many free spots are there is a simple way for you to optimally distribute the resources that exist. Utilities, of course, is a very natural thing. Predicting how much electricity or water you need by monitoring real-time consumption and being able to layer that over the actual distribution system and your production system. A lot of times, and this is something which we've been seeing around the world, utilities scale for peak, which means that they put the biggest power plant for the peak amount of power required, whereas the actual usage of power goes up and down. When it's a hot day, people turn on the air conditioner and they start using electricity. You have to aim the power load factor for that, not for the rest of the day when nothing happens. And building management systems is another beautiful example. They are able to optimally use resources but not just in one building, by being connected so they can take a conscientious decision together, which leads to better outcomes. Enhancing the consumer experience and ease of use. This is a lot about how a person experiences the place. It optimizes how they work in the cities that they are. And for me, that's using sensory feedback, touch, sight, hearing, even smell. When most people think, and I'll come to that, they think of digital and smart, they think of app, they think of LCD screen, they think of computer. But a lot of what smart cities are is providing different interfaces for you to work with. But make it automated and easy to access basic city services. No more standing in lines. No public kiosks and apps. You empower decision making to inhabitants. You decide when you want to consume a resource. You decide when something turns on and off rather than a bureaucrat, because the algorithms are able to support you to that. You can manage consumed resources, booking of public amenities, mapping of usages. I spent some time consulting with one of India's major temples in the north. And what they discovered was the pilgrimage line to the temple. If they could just tell people on a small board, X number of minutes at the temple in the center square, their peak things would get flattened. So they wouldn't have a 2-hour waiting at one time and a 2-minute waiting at one time. People didn't know that, look, hey, it's 2 minutes for this temple. I should go now. Why am I going there when everybody else is going for the 2-hour wait? Getting status updates on transit, pollution, management issues. Before you go in the morning, if the city tells you what's the traffic like, what's the pollution like, is there something going on, is there an accident, is there a major disaster, you can take better decisions as a consumer. An automated systems at home and office to allow for more productivities. You know, a simple thing which can be done today. And by the way, these are all things that can be done today with today's technology. You know, don't wait for your washing machine to finish up. You can leave your clothes and it'll give you an alert and it'll do their own SimCycle. This has been done. It works beautifully well. The next thing is allow smart platforms. And a platform is different from a portal or something. It means a base in which you can build up on. And you can then, other people can create marketplaces where home, city, and social enhancements can be created, given for free if needed, but also sold. And so you have a large variety of ways that, look, I, as a city provider, think you should interact with my city this way, right? But 5 entrepreneurs can come and say, well, most people don't like it. They want to see it this way. So opening up of your APIs and open data, allowing people access to the city as a platform. Rather than me making a traffic management app, I say, I'm going to give all of my traffic data to whoever wants to use it. Let them come up with the platforms that reach consumer and businesses. Let them come up with apps and ideas that really change the game. And the digital fabric allows for consumption. The assumption, again, in smart cities, for example, is that there's a perpetual digital connection no matter where you are. And this allows a lot more consumption of an interaction, particularly in the entertainment section, news section, both in digital. And what I love about smart cities is you can do this in a blended form. It's not just people walking with their cell phones continuously looking at it, but they're able to interact with digital spaces. The last one for me is change behavior for better personal and societal outcomes. I think for me, this is a crucial part of a smart city where, for example, real-time information on resource usage, score tracking allow inhabitants instant feedback on their behaviors and their efforts to change. Now, Fitbit and all the other people are now giving you your step trackers. If you could get, for example, a personally updated health impact dashboard and have to see it every day and see it every morning and see, by the way, you walk into a thing, first thing you say, hey, today your carbon footprint was this much. Today you consumed this much water or electricity. Does that allow you to say, okay, I can now make an informed choice whether I want to continuously use more resources or keep my score and do it in a better way. But design and technology also makes it easier to use eco-friendly systems as mass transit through better user experience. Can you have a senior executive give up his BMW and take the monorail or the train? If it's a seamless experience where the person can come in and digital technology helps that, he knows when the train is, he knows it's on time, he can walk in, he can swipe his phone, suddenly maybe he'll say, you know what, forget it. I will actually use mass transit rather than use a chauffeur-driven polluting car. And it also allows stuff like pod cars, rental by the hours of cars, bicycles and all to work because the smart city fabric is able to enforce those issues of rental, ownership, theft, and other mechanisms. The key factor for smart cities. Can anybody guess what's the key factor? Political will. What else? People. Who else? What else? I got political will, I got people. Space. Location. What else? Infrastructure. Any other ideas, guys? Technology being available and able to applicably do what it's supposed to. We can think of something amazing, but if the technology isn't there, it's not going to work, right? What else? Aha, who said finance? This is actually the key factor. It's about money. I try to do everything. I said, is it a design issue? Is it a technology issue? Is it a space issue? Is it a planning issue? Is it a political will issue? It also actually all comes down to money, and therefore, quite frankly, interest rates. The majority of smart city projects, unfortunately, are long-term ones that pay over 10 to 20 years. If you are sitting in China or the US or Hong Kong, and you're borrowing at 2% or 1.5%, 5,000 crores, you can pay back. You know, it's about 100 crore per year you have to generate to pay, which a reasonably large-scale city can think. If you're borrowing at an India interest rate of 12.5%, 13%, you can't foot that bill. That's 550 crores of revenue you have to search for, right? So while established models such as toll roads, energy-saving funding have been proven, many others just don't provide earning streams of income enough to justify their costs, especially given the kind of interest rates that are floating about, particularly in a country like India and other emerging markets. And quite frankly, I'm not convinced the willingness to pay for smartness is there. I think a lot of people say colloquial demand, this would be very nice if this happened. How much are you willing to pay for it? That conversation starts to become a bit difficult, right? And so we all want these beautiful smart cities, but I say, hey, double your rent, I'll give you a fantastic smart city. And then you start thinking, well, I don't know if it's worth it, right? And initial seed experimental money can be given by government. This 5,000 crore, 50 crore per smart city, I think it's a good seed thing to capture the imagination, but a huge amount of private and international expenditure is going to be required. And again, it all goes down to interest rates. Can you get a 10, 20 long-term building, operating city infrastructure loan at a reasonable interest rate? So for me, the recommendation is early on, razor-focused capital, business models, cash flows when evaluating smart city features, rather than look what looks cool and what looks glamorous. What looks cool and glamorous will sell to the population, will sell to the crowd, but at some point you'll realize it's not going to actually happen because no one's going to be able to pay for it. You'll win awards in beautiful design contests. Your YouTube video on your concept will get 20 million views and 500,000 thumb likes. It won't get built. Because if you can't figure out the financial models and the problem of high interest rates, it won't happen. The other quick factor I want to talk about is the digital divide and overload. Again, whenever I talked about smart cities, both to consumers, to businesses, and to people who are designing them, there's this mental block for most people who look at smart screen, smart mobile phone, smart computer, smart touchscreen kiosk, right? But demonetization has showed how sensitive the digital divide actually is. A large part of India is not digitally literate. But it's not just about learning. I see all these people, how we kept a computer in a wall and slum children learned how to use it. The problem isn't so much about them learning how to use it, but a mental model shift of moving the way they consume, the way they live their lifestyles to incorporate digital thing. I'm convinced post 30th of December, you're going to have a huge problem still moving people to use digital methods of payment, because while they know how to use it, that mental model shift is a much harder thing to do. And technology can actually accomplish a lot without being seen. You can have huge smart cities where nobody ever even runs into a screen or a computer, but still you reap a lot of the benefits. And so I want to think about when you look and design smart cities, because you are the guys in the room who are actually going to do this. I am very great at fact-finding missions, but you are the front lines of actually getting this done. Please think of design interactions with technology in a seamless manner. Rather than concentrating on things like apps and screens, how can those things interact? I've seen, by the way, amazing prototypes, and I know some of you in the room have been building those that allow for that. And so technology should blend into the environment and not become the focus of it. Especially there where available, not in your face. I'll give you quick examples of these. E-ink screens which give a bus position locators at bus stops rather than a glaring LCD screen or an exclusive need for a tracking bus app. Beautiful e-ink, It shows the bus. It blends in seamlessly. You can't tell the difference between handwriting. This is the technology that powers the Kindle. Is that my timeout? Okay. 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Okay, I'm going to run through quickly. I thought I had half an hour, 10 minutes to go. Fingerprint biometric authentication services rather than looking at smart cards, key cards, mobile phones. Paying with things with QR code rather than your phone reading the QR code. Why can't the other thing pay with the QR code? Facial recognition systems to count pedestrians versus sensors or hand touches or things like that. And voice recognition stations. You've all seen Amazon Echo, you've seen Google, etc. A lot of things can be done by voice. Click a button, tell what you want, and deal with the city rather than doing it in an app. One of the key technologies is protocols, and the slide will be online, have a look. Nobody actually has standardized all the protocols, and there's a huge fight between something called the programming logical controllers versus the internet protocols. There are pros and cons to both. PLCs are tried and true secure technology, but not very flexible. Internet protocol, all of you know and use it and love, and this is something that has to be sorted very quickly. At the end point, there are too many things. There's UBS, Insteon, Z-Wave, Zigbee, Bluetooth, Thread, Apple HomeKit. All this stuff creates, these are the roadblocks that stops mass adoption, and getting the technology stack right is there. Here's some of the issues that create bad incentives. India is incentivized for developers to build and run. They're not incentivized to hold and run infrastructure and really be a part of the consumer story beyond 3 to 5 years. And these are classic, low rental yields, mandatory transfers to RAW associations, non-paying tenants are hard to dislodge, so you sell rather than rent. Amenities you transfer to the government instead of actually being part of the city. You don't get any FSI ground coverage for innovative solutions. And the service tax structure actually penalizes smart city operators rather than encouraging them. And there's no offset against interest rates and all. These are just some of these issues. Here are the risks that have to be managed. Getting the costs right. And most people underestimate the total cost of ownership. And a lot of people end up paying a lot more for old technology because there is a brand name associated with it. This major company, which has been there for 50 years, get what smart city solutions are probably last 5 years. Finance modeling, again, I repeat, is the key. Technology frontier versus standardized technology platforms. Do you decide on last year's best technology, or do you invest in to see 5 years from now and the inherent risks? Vendor lock-in is a huge problem. Again, no standards. You choose one vendor, you're stuck with them for the next 20, 30 years. If they go bankrupt, what do you do? Project management execution risk in any project, but not many people have done smart cities. So people say, oh, we'll build you a smart city. How many have you done? Well, hard to say. And prioritization over impact versus glamour and gimmick. At some point, you do have to make that call and move on. And then the phasing of large-scale projects, as I mentioned earlier, threatens economies of scale. So really balancing those two. How do you pay for it and get economies of scale, at the same time build in? So in conclusion, smart cities are possible today, and many options do exist. And I highly encourage all of you to get into this ecosystem, start doing trials, doing prototypes, and do a lot of business model testing. However, with the exception of a few greenfield projects, I estimate maybe 5 to 10 that will happen in the next 5 to 10 years. It will take about 10 to 15 years before you'll see widespread smart city usage there, which is a decent time. I mean, cities take a long time to build. But more than anything, we need to move beyond the buzzword and start acquiring, at some sense, some common definition and vision accepted by stakeholders. This is key. We can't continue for the next 3 to 5 years, keep fighting where smart city is doing. And I can offer up my version of it, but I don't know if that's the correct version. Please, I will post all of this content on LinkedIn. You can connect with me through this. That's my LinkedIn URL, that's my email, that's my thing. If you drop off your business card, just put it on that table over there. I will email you with the slides, and I'll add you to my LinkedIn post update. Thank you very much. I think I have been told I have time for 1, maybe 2 questions. If there are any audience. Sir. Sure, sir. What's your question?
The next decade, whether the construction techniques and the construction industry in India can meet the requirement of build-up spaces.
Sure. What's beautiful, by the way, of high interest rates is that developers need to construct really, really, really fast. So when I've been looking at projects, particularly in Mumbai, they've been completing entire floors in 20 days. So if you asked me 2 years ago, I would have said not. But today we do have, there are at least 5 to 6 companies in the country who I really believe can execute well. I think the problem we are running into is not so much whether the construction technology and all exists, whether the management technology of construction exists to bring those pieces together. That's what I'm worried about. Last question. Thank you. Sorry, I wish I could go into more details. Brilliant. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you for coming at 10 a.m. and all for this. And thank you to CII and the entire curation committee for having me here. I hope you have a great day.